If you're trying to articulate feedback to somebody, here are two critical mistakes you might be making without even realizing it. The first is we often tend to confuse feedback with giving opinions. So we need to first learn to distinguish between feedback and giving an opinion. And the second mistake we make is we've often heard this to use the sandwich method to give feedback. And in case you don't know what that is, it basically means to start off with a compliment, then move on to giving your recommendation and then ending with a compliment again. The sandwich method. And in my opinion, that's not the most effective way to give feedback because it draws attention away from the most important element of what you're trying to communicate, which is the recommendation. And when done the right way, we're able to give across our point without hurting anybody's ego or feelings. In fact, the framework that we're going to learn today has been not only used by me on my team, but has been taught to professionals from all over the world who have used it in their lives and received amazing feedback on how they provide feedback as well. And more importantly, the people they gave feedback to were able to actually become better and achieve results because they got very clear points on what needs to be done. So we're going to get into the 4-step framework that will help you to give feedback effectively, a couple of examples to show you how this applies in a real life setting, and finally, how can you practice this yourself to apply it in your own life? By the way, if you're new here, my name is Radeep from Frantically Speaking. We release communications content regularly. So if you're into that, hit subscribe. And if you want to take your communications learning to the next level, you can click the link in the description to check out our courses and see if we can work together. Okay, so the framework we're talking about is called as FOSQ, F-O-S-Q, and it stands for Fact, Opinion, Solution, Question. Going back to the first mistake we spoke about, that we tend to not distinguish between giving feedback and giving our opinion, it's because we don't start off by stating the facts. So that's the first thing we need to do. Not what we think is right or wrong, but by stating what actually happened. We then move on to giving our opinion as to why we thought that thing is good or bad. We then need to give clear-cut solutions and finally end with a question. So let's look at a quick example over here. Let's say if one of your colleagues is taking you through a presentation that they've created and is asking you for your feedback. And if, for example, you feel that the presentation is lacking enough visual imagery and graphs, if you use the sandwich method, you might just say, the presentation is overall looking great. Just one thing I would recommend is if you could add more visuals, that will make the presentation look more appealing. Otherwise, it looks fantastic. Let's take it forward. That's the sandwich method used more or less. And you can go deeper with it, but it doesn't give you a checklist to ensure you're covering every aspect effectively. So instead, if you use FOSQ, here's what you might say instead. So you forget all that stuff, which is, oh, this is good, this is bad. You just start off by stating the fact of what you think needs to be improved. And what you want to try to do over here is get really specific with your fact and opinion as well. Here's what it can sound like. Okay, I noticed that after slide 3 all the way to slide 25, there are absolutely no visuals being used. There's mostly text itself. That's a fact. There's no argument over there. We can then move on to our opinion by saying why we think visuals are important. And again, we want to be specific over here. In my opinion, adding graphs for slides 5 and 6 and adding a few visuals to support slides 12 and 13 will help to break the presentation up and not keep it too text heavy. But more importantly, the visuals will help make the entire slide more memorable as well. So people walk away by remembering your points for a lot longer. We then move on to the solution by telling them how they can act upon it. Now here we could give them a direct solution, or we can give them references to help them support this as well by saying something along the lines of, there's a presentation that was made last month by another colleague. I'll have that sent across to you. And the guy has done an amazing job of sprinkling enough visuals to make it relevant while still keeping the theme of the presentation intact. Along with that, I'll also send you some website links where you can get royalty-free images of high quality to apply into this presentation as well. And I think that should help make your job a lot easier. And finally, we want to conclude with the question. Now, the question can be very simple by just ending along the lines of, does that make sense? Or have you already thought about doing this before? Now, the reason this is important is because if we use does that make sense, we bring the person out to the same page. And if we say, have you thought about this before? We can understand if they've actually thought about adding visuals and why they didn't do it in the first place, or have they just not thought about it. In that case, we're able to make the feedback more into a dialogue as opposed to just a one-sided conversation. Let's look at one more example. So let's say if you're a marketing manager and one of your colleagues created a presentation to launch a new product, and the presentation was supposed to include the analytics of the social media performance as well, but it does not. Here's how you can use the FOSQ method. Fact. Hey, I noticed that the project report you submitted yesterday did include the engagement metrics for our product's Instagram campaign, which is a key part of our launch strategy. Opinion. In my opinion, this data is crucial for understanding how our target audience responded to the product launch. Without it, we can't accurately assess the campaign's effectiveness. Solution. To improve the report, I suggest we work together to add the Instagram engagement metrics, including likes, comments, and hashtag performance. We can also discuss ways to track this data in real time for future campaigns. Question. Can you walk me through how you currently track and analyze social media metrics so I can better understand why this data was missed and how we can improve our process? Now that's a much more refined version of it. The first one was more casual. You can pick whichever suits your scenario a lot more. Now, how do you finally practice this in your own life? I love to use ChatGPT to practice, especially the audio feature. So what I would do is I would go to ChatGPT and tell them, hey, I'm trying to practice the FOSQ method of giving feedback. FOSQ stands for fact, opinion, solution, question. And here's what it needs to achieve. I would like to create a role-playing situation where I'm giving feedback to a colleague on this particular report. And I would like you to tell me if I'm using the FOSQ method correctly or not. All this can be typed out. Then you go to the audio feature and actually give the feedback using the FOSQ method and ask ChatGPT for feedback using the FOSQ method themselves. Now you can make this a daily drill, but that might be a little difficult to do for something as specific as giving feedback. So you can only practice it when you actually have feedback to give. For example, if you're going to be jumping on a meeting the next day or you have some project to review, the day before you have to do that, you can go and practice this particular framework on ChatGPT itself so you understand exactly what you need to say and how you can make your points a lot more effective and articulate. And if you found this video helpful, I'm sure you'll find the next video helpful as well, where we talk about how do you not blank out while speaking, especially when you're put on the spot, whether you're giving feedback or just an impromptu conversation. You can check out that whole video right here.